science communication.
Sorry, I wasn't recording. Okay, anyways, go ahead. Sorry, sorry. I was like, wait a minute, it's not recording. But okay, so you do the you validate them. So how would like a lay person, or I don't know if that's even the right term, but how would like a regular person figure out like which one I buy, other than like their favorite athlete or favorite influencer? Like, because how do I know? You know, without my background, I wouldn't know what to get, the Whoop or the Aura or the Polar or the Garmin. Like, what are some
Yeah,
things we
yeah.
can find out?
I think the first step is like how is it going to work into your daily flow? Is it something that you want to wear? Is it something that you're comfortable wearing? So like if you think about if you're trying to track sleep, would you be more comfortable wearing a band or a ring? If
Yeah,
you are looking at price point, like sometimes price point is the biggest differentiator.
yeah,
There is nothing wrong with a lower price point and starting with a lower price point if it means that it's going to be consistent. So I think like the consistency is the most important part with a wearable, so that you are going to pick something that is going to be meaningful to you.
right.
And I think the other part is like which one is going to actually change your behavior and what you're going to get excited about. I think that's the biggest
Oh, I like that. Yeah,
challenge.
yeah,
Is the biggest challenge right now where we can produce so much data on people at this point, and we can give it to all of them and make it look fancy and give you, dashboards to screenshot and share. But are you actually going to change your behaviors around your sleep? Are you going to change your behaviors around your sleep?
yeah,
Sorry, your nutrition or exercise?
right.
Uh, I think that's where the next step is. I
Yeah.
think every company is trying to tackle that.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned two things. I like to mention that you with the wearable, like it's going to be comfortable first, right? Like outside of price point. Like I know for me, when I first wanted to track, I was like, I can't wear anything on my wrist, so I started with the ring. The ring was easier. Then I was like, you know what, I want to try something different. And now I've been doing the Whoop band. I think for me, the Whoop band um, makes it a little bit easier to change behavior because there's a community. I don't know if the aura's changed, but I think there's a community part with it. With me and five people that I know, like, all right, let's see who has the best recovery score. Like those things, I think those things can like incite some change in people, right? So I think that's cool that you kind of mentioned those things that may
Yeah, and
be
those types of scores, like they're not really interchangeable.
right.
So that's
Yeah,
like
I
what
know.
why consistency is so important, where it's like it doesn't matter which one you wear as long as you keep wearing it, and that's how you detect those trends and change those things over time.
Yeah, 'cause if I compare these two, so I have a Polar watch and a Whoop band. This one counts higher step, this one counts lower. So I don't know which one I'm actually getting. I'm probably somewhere in the middle if I had to guess, right? So yeah, like you said, it's hard to compare if you're wearing a Garmin, I'm wearing a Polar, like we may not be tracking the same things, but if you're able to track your own deal over time, I think that's good. Um,
Yeah.
so where do you think the tech's going? I know like there's an ECG or EKG feature now in the Whoop. Like, is there going to be like more stuff in tech and less wearable? Is it going to go around my head? Is it going to be integrated in my meta glasses? Like, where do you see some of the what's it going to measure next, and then where's it gonna go?
Yeah, I think I have kind of two thoughts there. One, I think it's going to go more medical. I think we're going to see more kind of FDA type of
Oh
intervention,
wow, yeah,
where we start to see like, okay, what can we show in these relationships? Are these measurements a surrogate for these more medical diagnoses like blood pressure, which is a big one right now. Um, I mean, we can detect some of these things already, and the algorithms are pretty good, but they haven't gone through that FDA clearance. So having more larger st scale RCTs that are showing that relationship is going to be really key, and then that is going to also open up the world of medical kind of monitoring.
right.
And I hope, I mean, my goal or hope is that the medical community is also tracking this as well and using the wearable data for monitoring for patient monitoring over time and seeing how interventions are changing their patients' outcomes. But then the other thing I think is this like kind of like health OS type of work where a lot of companies are doing it, and I think Apple and actually Apple. Maybe I shouldn't be saying names, but Apple, they actually put this project aside. But like Google is going headfirst into this space. And I think the wearable companies themselves are looking to try to understand how they can provide more interventions and recommendations for people. Like I said earlier, like we have so much data on individuals already. How can we bring that into recommendations and then behavior change? So those are I see more and more companies building something else that integrates
Mm,
all of their data.
yeah.
So if you have Strava, if you have, whatever wearable you're using, they cover all of them. If you have like contextual factors, behavior factors that you can log in and subject, like all of that subjective health type of information, you can log all of that into this app, and then they will be that layer of decision making. Because that's been the weakness of a lot of these wearables, where they're not able to provide like true change. Like wearing the wearable doesn't make you healthier, basically.
Right, 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 right. I think,
And
yeah, I think
people
it
want to
can.
think that way.
No, yeah, I mean, it can like help with some change, like, what I found is like initially, right, people like, I got more steps, I got a Fitbit, right, and then after a while, they're like, oh, I didn't charge it, so I just never wore it again. Like they just, so like any little friction for people, they
Yeah.
won't do it. And I think like maybe initially the wearables will create some friction, but then eventually if my medical group or my doctor is seeing all my data, it makes it a lot easier to have these conversations, right? Or I don't know if AI can pick this up and it creates more jobs. I think there's a lot of stuff there, like kind of like you mentioned. But as we were talking about this, you said we need more RCTs or randomized controlled trials. Like, how would even something like this start? Like, how would you even does like a hospital group start this study? Like, how would he? I don't even know. I don't even know how to begin something like this with a big old large scale study. Like, how would that even look?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's a few different ways. The hospital group integrations with like a university,
Oh,
is kind of three-prong, where like the hospital group provides the patient data,
mhm.
and the patient population, and then the university analyzes it and then gives that back to the wearable. Some of this happens behind closed doors, and then some of it happens very publicly, where there's a published study. They're typically registered on clinicaltrials.gov, which is great because you can see kind of like who's been doing what. And then the results are published on clinicaltrials.gov. So that's one way. And then I think the more common ones are just university partnerships. And this is something where I have been like on a soapbox about, because I mean, even in my PhD, in our PhD, we like
Mhm.
I was kind of doubted in my research topic, which was looking at digital fitness interventions.
Right,
Because at the time, like they were new, it was
right,
almost
right,
it was like right before,
right,
and it was before the explosion of them, and it's just kind of like this is a trend, this is a fad, like this is not
right.
worth studying.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously, like we had a big influx and then a drop, but the companies are continuing and they're continuing to do research, and I don't think tech is going away anytime soon, and AI is.
No, no, right,
So there is like a kind of like a gap of industry and academic research partnerships.
right,
Um, some of it comes from just pure marketing, like has done its job really well in providing a lot of information to the public that may or may not be accurate, and that has created a lot of doubt within particularly the academic community,
right,
in these companies. But it's truly amazing, like the caliber of science that is going on internally that's never shared is phenomenal. And a lot of that is proprietary. You can't share it, so
right.
it's going to be published in your favorite journal article, and you're not going to be able to read it and rip it apart and tell your students about it, kind of thing. But we have to really embrace that community and that willingness to partner, because industry wants to show that they have valid and reliable tools
Right.
that are meaningful for their patients and their users. They just need partners that will publish those findings. So that's been, I would say, the biggest opportunity. But also like even when I've worked with companies and we're looking for partners, sometimes people say, well, it's just a device, you're trying to sell it. So it's
Right.
not, we're not going to partner with you. And it's like, well, we have grant money, and now we see like NIH funding has lessened a little bit
Mhm.
in the recent years. So like people are a little bit more open to industry funding and industry funded projects, and they're gaining a little bit more credibility, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, do you think like some companies are just scared because like they may think academia might attack them, and because the research is supposed to be right. We're just doing the research. We're doing data, and this is what it is. And sometimes that result might make their product look like not as effective based on what they did on their end. Like, do you think that has to do with some of it? Maybe.
I think the hesitancy to partner with university comes a lot from pace and from cost of
Hmm.
the types of projects.
Yeah.
So like industry companies, they move incredibly fast. They have really high targets. They have to move quickly and have to iterate quickly
Right.
uh, to meet those targets, whether that's from a board direction or from the business changing, very quickly. So when you get into a partnership with a university, they're starting, we look at the summer right now. No one's putting together a proposal in a week when
Right.
they
Right. You can't.
but
Yeah.
like maybe like you'll find some people who will, but it's not going to be the fastest turnaround. And then submitting an IRB, getting those like any sort of partners and other researchers, co-PIs involved, getting feedback, doing all of that iteration, doing all of the time that it takes to do a study in academia. So, for example, there's a study that we have not published yet, but we funded it from an industry partner. I'm not going to name names. We
Sure.
funded an industry partner 5 years ago, and the study is still in its final edits to submit to a journal,
Yeah.
which means the journal takes 6 months for
Right.
actual if it gets accepted.
Right.
So we're looking at like 6 years past
Oh
the
my gosh.
so I'll be very happy if that gets published, but
Yeah.
it's not useful for the company. The company
Right.
wanted to publish like 5 years ago.
Right. What's also maybe not even the consumer, because now, because sometimes like maybe people with some education or even a lot of education, they may look at, oh, that's an old study. I need a study that says 2026, right? So I think like sometimes that poses a challenge too, because sometimes you read something like 3 years old or whatever. So, but based on what you know, um, does that stuff hold any weight when it's an older research versus a newer research, or does it depend on how old it is, or does it depend on the subject matter? Like, how does that factor in anything?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say something. I think that it matters on the for the kind of the social media world. Like this brand new study, breaking news. Like we rely on that cyclical, like we always need something new, and we can't
Yeah.
report anything from 2 years ago. And like if you look at a research study, if you talk to a researcher, there are seminal pieces that they'll always go back to. And they were published in the 90s and the 2000s. And
Okay.
there's still like there's been research trying to refute it. And guess what? We haven't been able to refute it. So that is the study that we always cite.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so it's like I still think like the actual quality of the study, the findings of the study, and whether or not it's been like if it's repeatable and if it's been repeated and supported, I think that that is still the biggest impact for a research study.
Yeah.
But obviously, we definitely care in like the media world. Like if it's a brand new study, we want to report on it. We want to talk about it. We want to be ahead of the curve kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
So yeah, I see your point in that. Even if the data was collected 5 years ago, like is it still meaningful? And I think that's also like super important with wearables and these technology products because the algorithm changes so
Right.
quickly.
Right.
So if you test a product 5 years ago, the product is nothing alike
Mhm.
if you test it today.
Right. The sensors change and all that. Okay, so we're talking about like wearable tech. I want to talk about like AI tech, and I want to talk about like the in-home stuff. I know for a while there, like some of the stuff like the Tonal, the Peloton was getting the mirror, they're getting stuff. So is that stuff kind of falling away, or people like real? Do you know what people rely on more like AI trainers? Like what do you know about that, and what do you think that stuff's going?
Yeah, so I am still very much in support of these tools. That's where I based my dissertation on, and I still uh, hold that true. I think that those types of interventions, those at-home exercise interventions, are able to provide motivation for individuals, maybe not the entire population, but for specific individuals who would prefer to work out at home and have a long-term data set based on them and the capabilities that they have within the AI to adapt and overload is very much more so than an individual who has little education and training,
Right.
and go to the gym, and great that they go to the gym. Exercise participation is number one key goal. So perfect. But what program are you following and who has set that up for you and how are you progressing over time?
Right.
I think that the AI within these programs, some are better than others, but they are able to provide that type of overload that is so essential for if we look at muscular strength and endurance and power, that was not like available to this population
Right.
previously.
So do you think more of that stuff's gonna grow? Like there's gonna be more of that type of stuff, or there's more like tonal type devices, Peloton type things. Like is that the wearables have grown, and I feel like every other week I see something and something else is marketed towards me. And now that we're talking about it, it's gonna be marketed towards me even more. But yeah, anyways, like do you feel like that field will continue to kind of grow and have more home type devices?
I think that we've seen a lot of saturation in the market at this point. And I've worked with companies that are similar to those companies that are trying to do the same thing or a little bit different. I think it's a little bit harder to differentiate yourself
Yes.
in that space because there are such great companies that are doing it well. I think that there's always going to be like an audience for something. It's just a matter of like, is it a large enough audience to sustain the business itself?
Right.
And that's the biggest challenge for those groups. I think they'll continue, but I think that they've turned to channels that they didn't consider that they would ever in the past, like selling on Amazon, selling in Dick's, selling in retailer stores, which they were kind of like this elevated brand. And I think trying to break down the barriers to reach the regular person has been the biggest goal in recent years. I also think that they have more integration into healthcare and they have more capabilities in that. And when I say healthcare, I also mean like
Right.
rehabilitative setting. So like I know that there's a big push in physical therapy clinics in integrating these types of tools. And I think if
Oh,
you think
cool.
about it, like if you are doing patient monitoring, if you want to see if they're changing over time, if they have an account with you and they're doing those exercises, you can see very clearly if someone's
Oh yeah, that makes sense. That's cool.
yeah. So I am optimistic about the field, obviously.
Yeah.
But I do realize like it's hard to build something new into this space. And I do think I do see implementation in other populations. So a recent company I worked with is shifted from the general population to like space expeditions.
Oh wow.
So it's like, how can we get astronauts continually to resistance train? Like, are
Wow.
we to market to the general public, or are we going to partner with NASA and get a device out into space? So
Wow.
it's like that's very niche, but there's creativity there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, another one that I've seen is like the Vegas nerve simulators. Like I'm on one right now, and I've seen some of those. You're like, do you feel like that stuff's gonna? I feel like that's gonna get bigger. Like, have you worked with any of that stuff where like you're putting something on your collarbone as opposed to do this, and you're playing different frequencies. Like, what do you feel like? I mean, are those guys doing enough research right off the bat, or are they just pulling research from another study to validate their stuff? Like, what do you see with all that stuff? That
Yeah,
was a
I mean,
long
I'm
question.
curious what your experience has been.
Right, right. For me,
Yeah.
so my experience, I mean, so when I don't know if it was like, even if it was placebo, maybe it could be placebo. It still worked right. Like my HRV has gone up from
Mm.
from wearing those things. So for me, it's worked. But I'm just seeing different iterations, right? Like I wear one that goes around my wrist and or ankle, and I've seen ones where you can put it on your head, you can put one on your neck, and some of them you lay on. I'm like, oh man, but some of those are very again, like you said, the costing, right? Like this thing cost me $200, which is $9,000 for a shift wave or whatever, right? So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is a lot of research behind kind of this neurofeedback, neural like nerve stimulation work. I've worked with with a neurofeedback device in particular, and it was absolutely validated within certain populations, and then they're moving it to the general population for central nervous system, recovery and like to boost the parasympathetic nervous system, basically.
right,
So it's been really well, and in the medical field, you absolutely need all of that research. It's just a matter of like, does it transfer over well is it still accurate within this new population?
Right.
And I think that that's where a lot of companies kind of struggle, where they're pulling research from another group and saying it works. Look, it
Right.
works. And like they can build some really great statistics on that. They can say 20% better. You know,
Right.
actually, marketing teams hate saying 20%. It's not big enough. And I was like, that's huge.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a big change. Yeah. 5% is enough, right? But yeah, 20 is a lot. Yeah.
I remember like a stat was like 23% better, and I had it big on a page, and the marketing team was like, "Do we have anything better that like could we say 8 and 10 or 9
Yeah.
and 10?" And I was like, "No, 20% improvement."
Yeah, it's really good. But it's funny because like people like us is like, oh my gosh. But I think like when people see that like, oh, only 20%. They want to see like 2000%, right?
Yeah.
Like they want to see all that stuff. All
I
right. So
think
you're
also
you
like one thing I have a bone to pick with the kind of this parasympathetic recovery space.
yeah.
Um, I am still feeling like we're not spending enough time talking about stimulus. We're
Mhm.
talking about bringing everyone down,
Right.
trying to relax them, and that's the most important part. And yes, people are stressed. People have psychological stress throughout their day. They have lifestyle factors that are causing that. They're low on sleep. But they're also low on exercise. They're also low on providing a stimulus that reduces your resting stress, and cortisol levels and all of these things. So I always say, like, you're going to market to these people. That's fine. But from an exercise physiologist perspective, are they doing enough intensity in their day, within their week, within their program, that warrants bringing their nervous system down? They actually
It's true.
benefit from just doing some hard workouts,
Right.
getting the sympathetic response
Right.
and then parasympathetic build.
That's funny because we're like, yeah, let's do right now. It's like the recovery, right? You're getting recovery, but like, what am I recovering from? I didn't do anything. Yeah, I
Right.
didn't. I didn't really think about that. I think they're just like there's so many things within health, and then which piece is going to move the needle more. I mean, this is kind of maybe outside of the tech and science stuff, but you travel a little bit, right? You've been to other places. Like, I mean, obviously, do you think it's more of like a lifestyle thing? Like if you're going to Portugal, versus Kentucky, right? Like I mean, is it a cultural thing? Like, what do you see there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for exercise and lifestyle factors, like it's a lot more of an active lifestyle elsewhere, and less like organized exercise.
Right,
And
right,
we have quite the opposite in the US, where it's you have the 1 hour or 45 minutes of HIIT or your spin class or whatever you're doing, and then the rest of the day is sedentary. So yeah, I mean, I'm generalizing. I mean, I live in New York. We're a
sure,
very active bunch, but I know I've lived in other places in the US where you drive everywhere and there's a lot of convenience built into your everyday life.
right,
Uh, and that is just truly not really the same as lifestyles in walkable cities and places
right,
that you can bike everywhere and walk everywhere, and food is very fresh, and you're getting you're going to the grocery store and getting food to cook that night, and like everything is just more active. And like, yes, technology is like it kind of embedding their way into that lifestyle as well,
right.
making it a little bit more convenient, and kind of our US lifestyle is spreading, I would say.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but you're like, the fact is like you're not going to automatically and overnight buy a car and start driving everywhere in a city in Europe.
right.
But that is like basically almost a necessity in most cities in the US. There are very few walkable cities. So I think that it's just as a general fact, like our lifestyle is different, so we actually have to adapt to that. And a lot of it
Right.
is, I mean, you see it within like suburban communities, like more walking groups, more team workouts or like group workouts with the community and things like that. I love seeing that kind of growing.
Yeah.
I think that social aspect is something that we'll see more of.
Yeah. I think yeah, I've seen that too. And I think it's like you said, it's different. Like we're more on like the controlled part. Like we did our 1 hour. Like people like I work with a lot of people, they almost don't count it if they don't like work out for that. I'm like, dude, you just worked in the garden for 3 hours. That's way more than the workout, right? Like I think it's more important to just kind of like not make your life so worried about that workout and just walking more. I mean, I know it's not always easy to do that, but like those count too. Like you're just like being more active, right? Like I think like I've used an example, and I don't know how much a UPS driver really does, but I would say like in some ways the UPS driver might be healthier than the guy sitting at his desk for 10 hours working out 1 hour because he's moving all day, right? In some ways, like there's a lot of health benefits to that rather than just, yeah. But and I think in America, I think we're so concerned like the workout, like we had to hit that hour versus just like just doing more stuff throughout the day, right? So
Yeah, and like you see it coming out even more so. Like I love that people are wearing wearables. They know their metrics. They're interested in metrics.
yeah,
But being so concerned that you're doing a zone two workout versus like what are you doing the rest of the day? And like that zone two workout, was that the only thing you were going to do today? Can
right,
you add a lift? Do you want to, go for a walk with your kids after dinner? Like what else are you doing
right.
to complement that? And I think we have a little bit more of a I think access to data and performance data in particular. Like I think this VO2 max kind of um, blow up right now is
Yeah.
interesting. But I do think that a lot of people are surprised by their VO2 max. They thought that they were a lot fitter than they were. But the people who have high VO2 maxes are working very, very hard to have that VO2 max, unless it's genetically predisposed. So it's like, it's good, but sometimes it's better to stay simple and to keep it really like clear on what your goals are and just do the work that suffices for that.
Wait, so how much of that component of the VO2 is genetic that you know of? Or when you said something about genetic, like how do we know that or how do you measure that or you know?
Yeah, I mean, actually measuring it is a little bit difficult. That's a good question.
Yeah,
Like how much of it is genetic? I
yeah.
think I want to say 20%, and please don't come after me if I'm
Sure, sure.
misquoting.
Yeah.
But I think 20% of the of your VO2 max is dependent on genetic factors. Uh,
Wow.
and I've seen this come to life in
And
both.
20% is a lot, just for people to
Yes,
understand. It's a lot. That's a
exactly.
lot. That's a lot. Not a little bit. That's a
Um,
lot. Yeah.
So like if you see it like it's more prominent in elite populations, like general population, like you are who like
Right, right.
your training will improve your VO2 max regardless. If you start training and you start training it with intention.
Yeah.
But in elite audiences, you test someone and they're lower than they expect, but they're running at a speed of with people who have higher VO2 maxes. I've seen this before with a company that I worked with, and they insisted that the test was wrong, that they needed to come back, that this is not true. This is truly not true.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's probably a genetic thing. And if you are running at the same speed as the other individuals within your age group at an elite level, then you have built a really great aerobic engine despite that lower VO2 max. Like your ceiling is
Uh,
a bit lower, but
right,
you've lactate capacity and endurance higher to compete at that elite level, which is, I think, like a testament to your training.
right.
That's where we start seeing like how much is genetics impacting elite performance versus truly just training.
Yeah. I mean, I think like you mentioned, let's just say it's 20%, and if we're misquoted, whatever. I mean, but that's like a lot, but that's not also a lot to like to just give up. Like, oh well, they have better genetics than you. Like, yeah, it's a lot. But it's also like you could still make up for it in other ways. I think people like chalk it up to genetics all the time, and they just like not do it right. And I think my thing is like you said something about the influencer stuff earlier, but it's like people are like, well, this influencer does that, and I try to tell like my clients, I'm like, all right, this influencer one has better genetics, two has a better schedule than you, three doesn't have that, right? They have other things, better schedule, more time to train, better genetics. Like you're just not going to beat them. You're not going to catch up to them, right? So I think it's like important to recognize those things, but also like, okay, do what you can, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think when the more time that we spend on social media, the smaller our perspective becomes of like what does it mean to be human? Like I had this conversation recently of like, you are who you are, and like you have a set of cards that you're dealt, and then you can decide where you go from there. And I find like if I spend too much time on my phone and not enough time in the real world, that vision like narrows of what I'm capable of and like and what I'm contributing. But then when you get out in the world, you start seeing different people, you start interacting with different people, and like you have that human experience, like that is way more important and it gives you a lot of different perspective. I could go on a tangent about kind of the philosophy of all that, but the other thing with VO2 max is that What I think is more interesting is that there's also a genetic component of how much you're going to improve your VO2 max, like how much
Oh,
you're going to like respond to training.
mhm.
So that's also like very individualized. Like if you look at people looking at other people's HRV, or like, you go on the same program, it's one of the indicators of like, why are you not improving at the same rate as someone else doing the same program?
Yeah,
Because there's so many different factors at play that are controlling that.
that's interesting. I mean, obviously you don't even study like genetics, but there's probably so much that like you and I don't even know about
Oh yeah.
these things, right? Like fast responders, low responder. No, they've done some stuff where like certain people, if they have this gene, they can actually function on 6 hours sleep, or they actually, process caffeine. So it's like, you hear those things. I think it's maybe that's, some of that is where that goes. I think there's so much we don't understand about the genetics and nervous system, right? Like who actually can sleep on 6 hours, and how can we make that gene and pass it around? Maybe I don't know if that's the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the epigenetic space is really, really interesting. I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about it, but I do think like what's really cool, I think it's like a cool motivating factor outside of like all of the aesthetic based type of motivators of like you can turn on specific genes with exercise, which is you can change, it's like you can change your body. And it's not about what you look like or, anything else besides actually changing the molecular makeup, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's probably, yeah, I'm just trying to think like, where's this gonna be in 30 or 40 years? Like, am I gonna be able to ingest a pill? I mean, I watch some of the stuff like Brian Johnson stuff. I know some of the stuff people don't like. There's some stuff I try to take away. And I think it's cool what he's trying to do to make us live longer and better. So I think there's some stuff that's there that's cool.
Yeah, I think the basis of biohacking is not is altruistic in its nature,
Right,
because who doesn't want to live longer and live a fuller life?
right,
Um, I think that people will they tend to ignore the simple things that they could do with consistency
yeah,
and inconvenience. I think it's inconvenient to work hard in your exercise. It's inconvenient to eat certain foods and not other foods. And it's inconvenient to stop scrolling and to go to sleep. So these are the behaviors that we need to assess and change. And it's easier to take a pill. It's easier to drink this drink. It's easier to
right,
sit in a cold plunge than it is to go out for a 30-minute run. So it's like
right,
you're trading that convenience, but there's still so much we know, like so much research behind the simple things.
right,
And also like just like what are you biohacking for? Like not losing the sight of you're doing this for a reason and it's to enjoy the life that you have right now.
right,
So make sure you step back and like you don't need to obsess over every detail.
right.
But you like more focus on being present in the moment.
Yeah, I like that. I like that mention because, like, sometimes like, we talk about the interference effect, right? If you're doing too much cardio, you're doing too much weight, there's interference effect. But there's also like, some people, I've seen it where people are like, they make life like the interference effect of their training. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. Like you can't do X, Y, and Z because you have leg day tomorrow. That's crazy. Like that shouldn't, yeah, that should not, there shouldn't be an interference effect of life. Like, yeah. So whatever you're doing, I think I like that message. Like whatever you're doing, um, shouldn't like change your life, but shouldn't interfere too much. Yeah, it is inconvenient to do some of these stuff, but it shouldn't be in a way where I can't go have some wine with my friend.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think that's coming up more and more because there was, a movement of yeah, getting the perfect sleep score, getting the perfect readiness score, getting all of these things, and the behaviors that are going to change that. If you stay up late, it's going to change. If you drink
Right,
alcohol, it's going to change. And like, but if that behavior is paired with like deep social connection,
right,
or fun, like literally
right.
just have fun, like be silly, like that. Those are skills that we need as human beings
Yeah,
to be happy. So like, where does happiness come into play?
right.
It's just such an interesting balance and finding that balance.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much because yeah, it's like you have these things that because I know I'm on that side too. I'm like, well, if I stay up late tonight, even though it's Saturday night, like I don't want to have a 30 recovery score tomorrow. Like but sometimes I'm like, dude, what does it matter? Like, what's the point of having the best recovery score if I'm just not socializing? So yeah, I think I like that a lot. I think it's cool to hear it from someone like you. to share that stuff. Like none of this stuff's important if you're not doing the other aspects of life and being silly and goofy, no matter if you are a kid or a doctor or whatever, right? So that's cool. Well, I mean, thanks for that. That was a lot of good information. So what are some ways like do you like what are some ways people can learn from you? Do they go on your Instagram? What are some way, get in touch with you or whatever?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. They can find me on Instagram, Susie Reiner, PhD. Also, it's same as on LinkedIn as well. So I post things there, and you can visit my website, theoryxperformance.com. Mostly B2B work with startups, but building out some general population tools as well.
Cool. All right, Doc. Thanks for your time. It was such a joy to talk about all that fun stuff. It was good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And
Nice
we'll
to
talk
talk.
soon. Bye bye.
Bye.